Hey guys, welcome back to the old mill shed. So after we put the intake and the exhaust on, this tractor is running a lot better. This seems like it's happier. It's got more power. The fuel consumption has actually come down a little bit, but I'm still having a heating issue. And I know this radiator's been hit. It's got a lot of folded over coils or fins in the front. It's a lot of JB weld and stuff on the back of it. I'm guessing the thermostat is probably stuck or at least not opening all the way. It does have the wrong coolant in it. It's got the wrong pressure cap on it. It's 19 pounds. It's supposed to be 13 pounds. So to get started, like I said, I know this isn't a stock radiator. The one it's going back on isn't a stock radiator. I'm expecting it to be some issues here. But I'm going to take the battery off, take this rigged up overflow off. I'm going to find a container to put our old antifreeze in. You don't want this left out in the open so that your animals can get into it, drink it, and I believe it hurts their kidneys. The kidneys are the liver. But you want to keep all your animals safe, so you want to put it in a closed container, take it to auto parts store or your local landfill for recycling. So we get everything drained out, get all this useless stuff off the front, or not useless, but we don't need it for cooling. And then we'll get to a point where we can finally start disassembling the coolant system. I don't know if this shows up on camera or not. There's just a lot of sludge down in here, probably from being open to the atmosphere. I'm going to probably try to clean that out, and this will be a good place to have a 3D printer, make a new cap for it. If I have some aluminum, or maybe a little piece of brass or something, where I can turn it out and put like a little O-ring in there where it pop on here, I will. I think these replacement ones are like $20. So if it's going to be too much issue, I'm probably just going to buy a new one. Okay, let's see here. We have the rack. There's a little groove at the bottom that this sits in. Now this is supposed to help keep the radiator clean, for like when you're bush hogging or cutting hay or something. Keeps the seeds and the fluff from getting into the radiator. I don't know how well this shows up, but a lot of these fins are laid over. Got a big dent right there. This radiator is just in really poor condition. Like I said, I couldn't really see it when I went to buy this thing. It was getting kind of dark, and everything else on the machine was kind of what I was looking for, so I'm not entirely certain this would have stopped me from buying it, but I will say it's a little irritating that I have to work on it. Okay. Looks like the fan got into this thing at one point in time too. What is all of this? Okay. This is where it mounts down at the bottom. And we've got duct tape. I'm guessing that is some form to keep the metal off the metal. We might see if we can't find a better way to do that. So while we're in here, I'll go ahead and change this belt out. Then we'll pull this thermostat out here as well and see what kind of thermostat it's got in it. Now it's got two different types spec'd out for this machine. One looks like the old, kind of like a thermostat you'd have on a Chevrolet small block. Concentric, you know, the standard how you expect a thermostat to look. And the other style has an off-center flange. And you look them up and both are spec'd out for this machine. And from what I understand is it kind of depended on what they had available at the time that particular machine was put together. Lots of times you would see where certain serial numbers would have one, other serial numbers would have another, but nothing like that really exists on this one. So let's pull this belt off of here, and then we'll take this thermostat off. Alright, so I took the belt off of the alternator and everything. I can probably go a ½ inch smaller on this one. Got plenty of adjustment left. And I can spin the water pump, and it pushes a little bit of water out here. So I think we're good on that. I don't think the water pump is an issue. Let's go ahead and pop this thermostat off here. I got the thermostat housing off of it, and it looks pretty rough. I don't like seeing this. Oh, that looks crusty. Yeah, we're definitely going to do a flush on this. But it is the type with the offset flange on it. So I'm going to go inside. I'm going to order one of these. And this is why you have to run the correct antifreeze or coolant in these things. Running the wrong one on these engines will cause a lot of crud to build up in your water jacket and all. Alright, well, we're probably going to be done here for a few days. Okay, so it's been about 3 weeks since I last talked to y'all about this. Here's the thermostat that I ordered. So I called the local New Holland dealership, which LS makes some of New Holland's tractors. And they said that they could get one to me in 2 weeks. So I called my LS dealership and they said they had it in stock. Well, when I hear somebody tell me we've got it in stock with nothing else said about it, I'm thinking you have it sitting on the shelf where you are at this moment. So I ordered it. They said I'd have it in 3 or 4 days. I watched my email. I watched the little tracking number they give me. And that Thursday, which should have been the 4th day, it said shipping delayed. And I'm thinking, okay, well maybe it's coming on Friday. No. They had it in stock in South Korea. So I went back to the New Holland dealership in town, and they said that that's where they would have to get one from as well. Now granted, these thermostats go on a lot of New Holland, Long, Montana, LS tractors. This is not like a rare thermostat. It's actually fairly common use. But for some reason, nobody felt that they should keep at least one on the shelf. Now this is a 170-degree thermostat, and I did use one of my wife's cooking pots. Heated the water up to 170 degrees and made sure this worked. If she doesn't watch these videos, she's never going to know. Now I did put a new belt on this. It takes a 4L430 belt. A lot of people will say to leave that rivet in. A lot of people say to take that rivet out, so you always have at least a little bit of water passing through this thing. I've always cut them. Everybody that taught me how to work on vehicles growing up always said to cut them. So I went and looked at the old thermostat. Luckily I had kept it. It does not have this rubber gasket on it. So I went and looked in my owner's manual to the parts manual. The thermostat that they have does not have the rubber gasket on it, but it does call for the paper gasket. Now I sit this down in here, and this sits up too high. There's no recess in the water neck for that to go up into. So obviously this engine is not supposed to have that rubber gasket on it. So I'm going to take that off, and we're going to put a paper gasket in like it was originally. And that just pops right off. So I needed to make a new thermostat gasket, and I called LS, and they said they had it in stock. But the last time they said they had something in stock, the thermostat, I had to wait 2.5, 3 weeks to get it, so I wasn't falling for that again. So I just go to AutoZone. You can buy a pack of different types of gasket paper. It is Fill Pro 3060. And it comes with 4 sheets. Looks like it's about 12 inches square. And you've got 2 thicknesses of cork. You got your gray gas fiber paper and your blue fiber paper. And the way I make this is lay my paper down here, and I take my hammer and I beat around the outside of the thermostat lightly. To mark it, I cut it out with the scissors. I mark my holes, knock it out, cut those out with my hole punch. And then this is the part that I took out, but I just take my hammer and I'll first mark it around the sharp edge, and then I'll move just inside a little bit. And it works best with a ball peen hammer with the ball side, and it'll cut that perfectly to your thermostat housing. I had the camera off while I was putting this on. I took a tap and ran down, kind of cleaned those threads up a little bit while we were at it, and then cleaned the threads on these bolts up a little bit too. They had a little bit of rust on them, so I figured we'll put a little anti-seize on them as we run them down, just to help us out in the future, because you know eventually you're going to have to be back in here. That's not going anywhere. Put the new radiator on, and I'll go over how to size a radiator here later on in the video. And then we're going to put some cooling system cleaner in this machine. Add some distilled water. You do not want to use well water, and you do not definitely want to use municipal water that has got chlorine in it. Use distilled water. It's not that expensive. And then we're going to run the engine, let it flush everything out. Now I've already ran a water hose through this. I've probably put about 15 gallons of just pure water through it with the water hose already. But we're going to let that flush everything out, then we're going to change it. So earlier in this video, I think I said it on this video, I said this is supposed to use blue coolant. And if you go to Mitsubishi's website under the S4Q2 engine, it says use the blue. But if you go to New Holland, LS, or Montana, and you look in their manuals, it says to use the green. And the guy down at my LS dealership said green or blue, as long as it's rated for an iron block, and it's, you know, it's ethanol glycol and it's low sulfate, I think is what he said it was, you're fine. And I bought 2 gallons from him. He said it would work fine in this. So I know I said blue earlier, and then now I'm putting green coolant in it. Apparently it doesn't matter. Well, now it's time to break out the star of the show. Now, you remember when I took the old radiator off, it was kind of in rough shape. And it was also a 4-core. Now, 4-core radiators are fine, but they do require a lot of airflow. I don't think a fan mounted to the front of an engine turning 1500 RPM is going to provide enough airflow for a 4-core radiator. Usually, if I'm using a 4-core radiator on something, I've got an electric fan. It's something that's going to spin very high RPM the entire time and provide enough air differential to pull that air through. The original radiator on this tractor was a 3-core. So that's what I bought. I bought a 3-core radiator that's roughly the same size. And here we are. Now, I've stated several times before, this radiator is meant for a Ford Falcon or early Ford Mustangs, which were, believe it or not, basically the same car. One was just a little sportier than the other. But when you're buying an automotive radiator, you've got to be careful, because they're going to come with a 13-pound cap. Well, sorry, they're going to come with a 17-pound cap. Most of these tractors need a 13-pound cap. So you will have to get a different cap for this. And here's a little 13-pound cap. We'll just go ahead and put that on. When you're replacing the radiator on your tractor or any piece of equipment, and say you don't have the original radiator to use as a standard to go by, or maybe you're building a piece of equipment and you really don't know which size radiator to put on this engine, there is a formula you can use. It's a good rule of thumb. Now, this rule of thumb that we're going to do is not the actual way to size a radiator. That one, I mean, you're using rejection, you're using airflow, fan diameter, fan speed, all kinds of things go into that. However, for our application, we don't have to have anything that precise. There's just a rule of thumb we can go by, and then if you take the result and maybe double it or triple it, you are going to be well within the parameters of what you're going to need to make work. So using this rule of thumb, I've gone through, right here, both of my tractors using this rule of thumb, and I also included how many square inches in cores that are in the radiator to kind of give you an idea how this works. So the formula that I use is horsepower times BTU factor times the multiplier, we'll get into that, divided by efficiency will give you the area of radiator you need in square inches. So for the 4540, we have a 45 horsepower tractor. The BTU factor on a diesel engine is 40. The multiplier, that has to do with what the machine is being used for. And I use the towing hauling multiplier, which is, they say 0.4, but it's actually 1.4. It's 40% higher than what the baseline is. So you put in 1.4. You multiply all of that together and you get 2520. And we're going to divide that by 55. That is the 3-row radiator efficiency. And that gives us 45.82 inches squared, or square inches. So if I take that number, because it's on a tractor and we don't have a lot of airflow, even though I have I think it's a 7 or 8 blade fan on it, and it pulls the airflow through. I mean, it creates a lot of flow. I'm still going to at least double that. Usually I'm going to triple it. The radiator I have on there is 323 square inches. More than enough to handle the thermal output of that engine. So here's the one I worked out for Emmett. Horsepower is 35. I know TO30s are supposed to be 30 horsepower, but when I rebuilt that engine, I put the overbore kit in it, and it is supposed to produce closer to 35 horsepower. The gasoline BTU factor is 30. We are towing and hauling, is the closest thing I could find to what a tractor does, is we multiply that by 1.4. We only have a 2-row radiator in it, so the efficiency is at 45. 1470 divided by 45 gives us 32.67 square inches. We'll just say 33. The installed radiator is 255 square inches. So even if I was to double that, I'm still well under what that radiator is able to put back into the atmosphere, but it's able to bleed off of the thermal system. I'm sweating, it's hot in here. But it's the only place I could find that was quiet. So Jason, why are your radiators so much bigger than what they need to be? Well, several reasons actually. Reason number one is I'm always going to shove the biggest radiator into the space available that I have. The more radiator I have, the safer your system is. You have more space for inefficiencies that happen during running. Well, you mean inefficiencies that happen when you're running. Now, we all run screens on front of our radiators. And you know that as soon as you start bush hogging, or as soon as you start cutting hay, or whatever you're doing, what happens? You start clogging that screen up. So all of a sudden, you don't have 250 square inches of available radiator space. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller all the time. Even if you're stopping every hour to shake that screen out, or like I do on sometimes I actually have 2 screens and I just swap them out completely. Even as you're running, that available area is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So if I can fit a radiator 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times bigger into the space that I have available, I'm going to do it. Now, you saw me take the old radiator off, and putting the new one on is not going to really be any different. Nothing really more to see. I'm just going to take the shroud off the old one, screw it into the new one. The support bracket that goes on the front and hooks on, put that on. Put a piece of rubber down in the bottom, just so it's not metal on metal. And then just sit it back in here. And I'm just going to come back after I've done that. So what I had to do on this radiator hose, I don't know how well that's showing up there. But this hose comes down, and right here at this end of it, it has a metal tube in it. Looks like it's about 1/16 inch walls. And it actually extends out past the end of the pipe by about that far. And then we have an 1 3/4 inch radiator hose that goes up on the bottom of the radiator and then fits this. So you have to have that little metal pipe inside of this hose so this can clamp down on it and then fit the bottom radiator outlet. That's part of the problem of running radiator that's not really meant for the machine, even though it'll work, is sometimes you have to kind of work with the hoses to make them fit different size inlets. I did add this extra piece here, so when I go to drain the tank or drain the radiator, it will come down behind the front axle in that open area, and it won't splash all over everything. I can just slide a bucket up underneath the tractor, reach up with one of my square sockets and take that out, and everything will drain directly down into the tank. We got a little bit of lull in the rain right now. I mean, it's still raining, but it's not as heavy as it was. And I just looked on the radar on my phone, the weather app, and there's a storm approaching. It's going to be here in about 10 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up for the day. So that bottle that I poured in there is the cleaner, and this is conditioner. I'm not entirely certain what it's conditioning, but you're supposed to run it anywhere from 10 minutes to 6 hours. I figure I'm probably going to run it like an hour. Let the engine cool. When you drain it out, you fill it up with pure water. You run it for 10 minutes. Let it cool. Drain that out. And then you put in your normal coolant mixture. So we're going to probably do that tomorrow. Everything bolted up really nice. I was expecting to have to fight it a lot more than I did. And I got underneath it and looked at it as best I could, but my water gate, it was raining so hard, the water just came right over my water gate and right under the shed. And I know I need to fix that. I'll probably do it this fall. So yeah, I was going to let it sit there without the radiator cap all the way on it. I've got it just sitting on there loosely, and I'm not putting the overflow tank on it until I put the coolant in. So I know there's going to probably be some comments, why didn't you put a overflow tank on it? I am, but I want to do it later. So after an hour of running, the temperature gauge will only come up about a quarter of the way to the hot. Now there is a mark over there about 2/3 of the way over, but the engine, the temperature gauge is not making it up that high. Now I felt the top of the radiator hose, and it was hot. So I'm obviously got water flowing through real well, and I guess that's just, it's now working so efficiently that it's just going to come up to that 170, and then that's where it's going to stay. The other part of it is right where the needle is staying, there is like a little break in the line, so you have like a little hash mark down at 0, then it makes a little jump, then there's like a black gap in that line, and then the line continues over to that other hash mark and then over to hot. And the needle is staying right in that little gap of the line, so that might be where it is supposed to run. So what I'm going to do, it's Sunday afternoon, I really don't want to be out here working on anything. So after work this week, I want to come back, I want to drain the cleaning solution out of it, refill it with water. I got some stuff around here I need to knock out, just move a few things around, nothing too major. And I won't run it for another hour or two with just straight water in it. Maybe we're going to be up in the 80s and 90s all week. It's not going to freeze. And then later this week I will drain that out, and then we'll put our solution in, and then we'll come back and we'll put on our catch can and all of that. So I've ran the tractor for about an hour and a half. I think I put right at an hour on the meter. because I don't run it at 2,500 RPM. There's really no need in it. 1,500 does fine for what I need it to do. And I'm certain that that has circulated the water enough to rinse out the cleaning solution. And during that time, now we're up in the 90s today, and it's usually about as hot as I run these machines, because it gets much hotter than that, I have a hard time staying cool. But it came up to about 1/3 of the way on the gauge, about right where that break in that line is I was telling you about. The next thing we need to do is we need to put a new catch can on the tractor. Remember, at the beginning it was like when it was open and dirt could get down in there. So how these things work, now of course the part where it pushes water into this, most people understand. You have your radiator cap here, and when your water comes up to temperature, and on this machine it's 170 degrees, this right here, this part right here, will push up, and then that little spout that comes out underneath your radiator cap, that's what hooks to that canister, and it will push the expanded fluid out into the catch can. The centerpiece here, which most people don't realize how this works, or they've never thought about it, but when everything cools back down, you actually form a vacuum inside of the radiator. And this will be sitting flush against the radiator cap part, the little receptacle. But when you form a vacuum, it pulls the center section down, and it will actually suck the antifreeze or your coolant or your water or whatever you have back into your radiator and keep it at its topped off level. That's why it's important that you always have a little bit in your catch can so it never breaks suction when it's going back in, because you break suction, you don't have anything there, it quits working. So if you have a radiator that will push fluid out but not suck it back in, and you're keeping the hose underneath the level of your coolant, and it's not a big difference in height. I mean, there's always going to be a little bit, but you try to keep it as little as possible. Lots of times your radiator cap going bad will cause that to happen. Or you could have the incorrect cap on your system. This system uses a 13-pound cap. Emmett uses a 7-pound cap. Now, of course, that doesn't have a catch can on it, just pushes it out, but that's older technology. Another thing about your radiator cap is it governs the pressure in your coolant system. So, for instance, this engine, this tractor, uses the Mitsubishi S4Q2 engine. It is designed to operate with a 13-pound cap. If you was to throw a 17-pound cap on there, it doesn't mean you will do this, but it could happen. You could actually damage your head gasket and start pushing coolant into the combustion chamber. Then you have to pull your head, have to have it surfaced, have to put a new gasket on. It's just a lot easier to make sure you're running the correct cap. So this is the expansion tank that we put on yesterday. Here's the hose that came with it. You just need to snug these up enough so it doesn't fall off. It's not really any pressure on it. Now you will get some suction on it, but when it's pressurized coming out of here, where this is open to the atmosphere, so you don't have any real pressure building on the hose. But when this is cooling off and you form suction here, you will get a little bit of suction on the line, but that suction is going to blow it off the nipple. This is mainly just to keep the vibration from letting it come off. See how it just drops right into the bucket now. The way I do this is I buy my antifreeze full strength. I don't buy that pre-mix stuff. It's the same price, roughly, for full strength as it is for the stuff that's already mixed up. So the way I do it, and it works good for me, is I will pour in, especially a new install like this, is I will pour in half a jug of full strength, and then I will pour half a gallon of water in here, and then I'll pour the other half back into the jug. That's about got a little bit more to go. And then the second jug, I'll pour half of that into the first jug and then top them both off with water, and I'll mark on the jugs that they have been mixed. And then I have 2 jugs of pre-mix. But I got twice as much for the same amount of money. Calm down. And I'm sure I'll have to top this off a few times. You know, you get little air bubbles in there and everything. Go ahead and top off our expansion tank while we wait for that to go down. Now when I fill these up, you don't want to fill them all the way up to the top while you're cool. I will probably fill this one up to just below this band right here. And then, especially with that, probably having air bubbles in it and all, it's probably not going to push a lot over. Okay guys, you want to guess what's happening? Yeah, we got another storm coming again. I swear it's like everything is great, the weather is fine, I start working on something, storm gonna come up. Okay, so cost of the repair. If I had bought the radiator from LS, it was going to be $1,600 after taxes. The thermostat would have been another $30. We're not going to worry about the antifreeze in the water because that would have had to been replaced on each one of them, so that's a wash. The radiator hose would have had to been replaced on either one, so that's a wash. But I did have to spend $30 on it, so we'll add that to how much the actual repair. So $1,600, $1,630 for the thermostat, another $30, so you're looking at $1,660 had I gone through LS. I got been $1,680 because I had $20 on the expansion tank, so $1,680 had I gone through LS. Went through eBay, found a radiator. It went on a Ford Falcon and the early Mustangs. It fit. It was $109 delivered. Then $30 for the thermostat, $20 for the expansion tank, and $30 for the radiator hose. So $109. Let's say $110. And then it was $80. So you're looking at $190. Not including the antifreeze and the water, which I said it would have been for both of them. So we're looking at this a little over $200 for the repair. And it runs cool now. It only comes up a third of the way through the gauge. So that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful, if not entertaining. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It helps the algorithm a lot. We'll see you here next time under the shade.